Hey, how's it going? Welcome back to the shop. Today we're going to be replacing the CV joint and the center support bearing on an E46 330 drive shaft. All right, so I'll go over how we got to this point. While removing the drive shaft from the donor car, the CV joint separated. So if you're inclined and use the internet properly, you can reassemble it with no issues. But if you're someone like me who tries to do everything without instructions, you will have tried to hammer the CV joint back on to the spline. I've got to the point where I rendered the flexible joint here useless. It doesn't move anymore. Luckily, they sell rebuild kits for these. And while we were at it, the kit also came with the center support bearing. To separate the two halves from the drive shaft, there's just a bolt right here. It runs inside of this. You have to hold this steady and back it out little by little. And you can pull a little bit on it. We had a lot of issues with ours because it was super rusty. So we wound up having to hammer it. Also in that step, ideally you're supposed to mark these because they're balanced. We did not do that. So I'm just gonna wing it, hope for the best. We'll report back on how bad the vibrations are. And if they are bad, I'll separate it and keep trying until I get it back to normal. But once those are separated, that leaves our center support bearing free to come off. And I'll put that on the bench and take that off in a minute. The real focus is getting the CV joint back together. All right, so what all comes in the kit? There's a band clamp around the inner part of the boot. Tube of grease. It comes with the center support bearing. Comes with a new CV joint. And then the back plate. And then a metal and a rubber gasket. So what had happened to ours was when we pulled it apart, all the ball bearings fell out. And then the outer and inner parts separated. What I didn't realize was you can't just hammer these back on with them on the shaft still. There is a circlip right here that holds the inner part on. Speaking of, that circlip's also in the box, a new one. For some reason, I couldn't get everything to sit properly while it was still on the shaft. I was able to get it all together once I pulled it apart, but it was already too late by then. I also didn't know this back cover comes off of this. And that's where you load the bearings in from. I was trying to load them in from this side. So anyway, I didn't go over the disassembly because I wasn't planning on filming anything because I was hoping everything would just go back together properly. So I'm gonna start by getting this on. I put the clamp on already, it comes separated. And that'll be where we sit that. This will be a good time to add some of that CV grease to the inner cup. All right, and this is where the metal gasket will go. Just set it on the inside one. Use a couple bolts to line up all the parts. One more thing to mention, the grooved side, you can see there's a little lip right here. That's the side that this plate goes on. So there's a flat side of this. That goes on the inside against the metal gasket. All right, get your circlip ready. And right now mine's got a little bit of a squishy action. This would help if you had a helper. I'm actually gonna put this on the floor so I can push down on it. Get the circlip opened up, push down. Guess while we got it up right, I'll add the rest of that CV grease into it. Move it around a little bit too to get some of the grease moved into the bearings. All right, rubber gasket. Try to get it on the most centered you can. And drop this cover. Of course, my bandit tool doesn't reach, so I'm gonna have to just pull it through anyway. All right, so there's our CV end. Let's get that bearing out. Lining up the two center support bearings by each other. This lip sticks outwards a little bit on the side going towards the shorter shaft. And this is simply just an interference fit, so we need to hammer this off. It'll give us better access to hit it with the hammer and chisel.
2 hours later.
Clean some corrosion off of this part before I try putting the new one on. All right, with getting the new bearing on, I'm gonna probably stand it up for this one too. I'm gonna find a socket that's this size so I can tap on it and get it on there. Got it started a little bit, but I don't wanna hammer on it with the big hammer. I'm gonna use the air hammer again. All right, that went pretty well. It's all on. This part's pretty simple. Just gonna put a little bit of blue Loctite on here. So I'm gonna get the bolt kind of started while I got it apart. Since obviously I didn't align my splines, I'm just gonna throw it together. I'm gonna try to align. There's a weight they put on here, and then there's a weight they put on the opposite side on this one. And then there's another weight on this one on the end. Not a weight here though. So I'm gonna attempt to maybe just alternate the weights. So I'll have the top weight aligned with the end top weight of the other side. My theory is pretty baseless, but I have nothing else to go by since I wasn't paying attention when I removed it. So always mark your parts when you remove them. Don't do what I did. So we're just getting it started as much as I can by hand. In any other place in the world that doesn't use salt on the roads, you probably can get the whole way without. It's pretty much able to get it all by hand. And the only time you can fit a wrench, and you can't fit the open end of the wrench in there, it won't turn. You have to put the boxed end in. But you have to basically get the threads all the way in or pull the shaft out a little bit to get room to access the boxed end into here as well, because you can't get it above. Here, let me see if I can get a better shot. There's a tiny little space above the bolt when you have the shaft fully in and the bolt fully tightened down as far as it'll go. When you're backing it out, you'll run into the point where you can't remove your wrench anymore. You'll have to remove the shaft a little bit to chase the threads back. Should be able to get that last bit of torque on there. All right, so if you enjoyed this video or this helped you out at all, please drop it a like. If you want to see more of the E46 and things to come, please subscribe to the channel. Thank you for watching. Peace out.